Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, we're here this week with Dr. Leah Younger. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. You want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So, I'm the clinical director of my program called Younger Psychology. It's a private practice. We have one full time clinician, myself, and another part time clinician. Most of our clients are children and families who are going through some sort of separation, custody, divorce related matter. Not all of them, but for the most part. And I'd say the two main categories of services that we provide are assessments and interventions. And we provide these services really running the whole gamut of lifetime, starting from little children, a couple months after birth through adulthood. And so we work with children that have all sorts of different mental health issues, relationship issues, parents, couples who are trying to learn to get along and communicate better. And then, of course, because a lot of these people are going through some sort of court related matter, some of the work that we do also entails collaborating with attorneys to help them understand their clients and the needs of the families better.
Wow. And obviously you deal with everyone, but mostly with like the kids or the couples also?
So it really depends what service they're coming in for. Sometimes if a case comes to my office specifically because there's a child that's having an issue connecting or bonding with one parent, or they're resisting seeing another parent, in a situation like that, while the child might be identified as the problem, we're obviously going to work with the entire family system so that everyone is supported and given the guidance and feedback that they need. But there are times where only one parent will come and they'll say that they want assistance on how to be a better parent, how to parent for the child that they have, how to communicate better. So in a case like that, we would just work with that parent who came. It really varies case to case.
So then what happens if the other parent doesn't cooperate?
Right, that's always the tough one. So it's going to depend on whether or not we're trying to work with everyone or we're exclusively trying to work with one parent. Something that's important to keep in mind is that when we're working with families going through separation and divorce, our role as mental health professionals will sometimes be neutral and sometimes be expert. So as a neutral professional, I'm trying to work with everyone. I'm not on anybody's team per se. And in a case like that, yes, we're trying to have buy-in of the parents and the child or children. And sometimes that can be really difficult if child or parent don't believe the service is needed, they don't want it, they're specifically against it. So your step one is always going to be trying to establish a relationship with the people that are coming into your office. And it can be difficult if people are actively protesting. And in a case like that, then we just try to understand, what do they want? What is a goal that they might be able to accomplish here? It might not be the reason they came or the reason they were sent, but is there something that they might find helpful, some gain that they might stand to make? And if we can find that, that's a really good starting point.
So to build your relationship and trust, you're trying to understand their point of view.
Exactly.
Not
And that's why
working with them.
Right. And that's why one of the first goals really is about establishing goals, so that throughout the course of the treatment or even the assessment, we always revert and talk and go back to, what were the goals that you had when you first came in here? Are we on track? Are we off track? Is it now time to modify those goals based on life that has evolved, the gains that have been made so far? So everyone sort of always has the compass that is leading the intervention or the assessment.
Why is it so important to have a healthy co-parent relationship?
It's a great question. And I'm sure that a lot of the push for you asking that question is because it's quite well known that mental health professionals and legal professionals and people involved in the community will always encourage parents, get along, get along, get along, co-parents for the sake of the children, for the sake of the children. But I don't think enough time is spent, like you're saying, explaining why. And at the very base of it, we can think of parenting as modeling. Every day of your life, you're modeling for your children. You're modeling how to communicate, how to resolve conflict, how to express opinion, how to support someone else, how to validate someone else's experiences that might be different than yours. And so if you think about your parenting role as that, if you're not able to show your children that you are trying to be a good co-parent, then you're not really giving your children the message of this is what you two can do in your life when you have conflict. So one big part of it would be about modeling and the importance of children having a good model to teach them how they can solve problems in their own life. In addition to that, children will look to parents to see how to react, how to cope, how to respond to a situation. So if they can look to a parent and see, hey, I know that this parent is really upset, but they're trying to stay calm, they're trying to talk peacefully, they're staying on target, they're staying focused. I can try to do that too. And on the flip side, if the parent is not doing that, and then when they're trying to talk to their own children and then the child yells back and screams back and says, I hate you, why are you making me do this? It's no surprise where that's coming from, because the child probably saw it because the parent modeled it. And so if we think about this, it's not just about modeling for the children, but it's also about teaching them, hey, if I can do this, you can do it too. And we can all as a family try to tackle this together. And we can figure out how to talk without losing our cool, how to cope with something that's upsetting us without acting overtly inappropriate or hostile. We can figure out how to solve problems even when the person that we're trying to solve this problem with is very different than us.
So the whole point is to teach yourself, really, and then to be able to show your kids, a model for your kids. So even if they say do it for your kids, you're really doing it for yourself, because you yourself are growing to become a better person in the process.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say that my focus is what this does for your children, because that's my line of work for the most part. But you're absolutely right that parents that are able to try to work on their parenting and their co-parenting have this additional gain of, oh, wait a minute, I feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit less stressed. Oh, hey, I tried this new technique of not responding to every text and every email the second it comes in. I took a break. I walked away from the computer. I came back, and then I was calmer and a more coherent and calm mind. And that absolutely can be self-reinforcing, because parents will then realize, oh, I feel better when I take this approach.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what's the hardest part about co-parenting?
Yeah. The hardest part is definitely going to be managing disagreements that have a lot of history to them. So if from the start of the relationship, two parents have always disagreed on a particular parenting style or philosophy, as time goes on, if that debate, conflict, difference of opinion is not dealt with, it'll only get harder to overcome that mountain. And more often than not, that will serve to push parents apart as opposed to together. And this is even more the case if the disagreement didn't start from the point of the relationship, but goes back to each parent's family of origin. So if one parent was raised with one type of culture and background, and another was raised with a different one. Even let's say we're talking about gender roles, for example, and then you come into a relationship with two very different concepts of gender roles and parenting responsibility, that can certainly make co-parenting difficult if it's not tackled as soon as it comes up the first time. And I think the other thing that makes co-parenting really difficult is ego. And no one's going to like this, and no one wants to admit it, but as humans, we have a hard time not being right. Everybody wants to be right, and their view is the right view, and they don't want to be wrong. And many people will think that if I don't fight this fight, if I give up, if I give in, then I'm saying that I'm wrong, you're right.
So how do you teach or portray it to your clients that it's sometimes worth it to give in, and it's not really easy?
The answer to that is that it's not about giving in. Sometimes it might be, but more often than not, instead of the orientation being, I'm going to give in on this one, you win, I lose, I'd rather the orientation be, how do we solve this one together? How can we, if possible, come up with either a compromise or a path forward where what's really important to you is met, what's really important to me is met. Also, it just looks different than we might have originally thought. So it takes a lot of creative thinking to creatively problem solve.
All parts of their life get helped and being creative and everything afterwards.
It's true. And if I think once parents practice it and they start to get the hang of it, hopefully they'll come to realize that they still feel valued, part of the concern of giving up or giving in is not only that they're going to then be wrong, but then their view isn't valued, it's discarded, it's ignored, it's not given importance. But if we can be creative about it and respond to each parent's concerns, that's their own and unique to them, then that gives a sense of importance of like, yes, what you want is important. Your view is valuable. We just have to find a way to tackle it and implement it.
So at what point in the process do you usually come in starting to help people?
So with my practice, it varies. Some people will come at the outset before they've even come up with a parenting plan, had conversations about schedule. It's at the very beginning. They've decided to separate and they want the guidance of a mental health professional to help them throughout the process, start to finish, make decisions and take action that keeps the needs and developmental tasks of children in mind. So in a case like that, it's almost like early intervention, because then we have the greatest influence. We can prevent problems as opposed to other cases where families will come to me 3 years in, 3 years of litigation, 3 years of fighting. There's already a child refusing to see another parent. Then when they come and say, okay, help us, it's a lot harder because we have 3 years of reinforcing problems. So it can really be at any point.
So you have to like solve the problems from before when they were married, solve the problems during the whole divorce messy situation, and then now moving forward. And I'm sure also the ones that come early on, they're more willing to be helped, like they want the help, or not really?
So to your earlier point about solving problems, I don't know that we're always able to solve problems. That's what we're trying to do. But more often than not, I think it's about maybe reframing and taking a new approach so that we can come at it from a different angle. And where and when possible, it's about prevention. So teaching everyone tools and exercises that they can do to prevent problems from getting worse or from coming up. And to your point about willingness, certainly there's something to be said about parents that mindfully and consciously choose to seek out a mental health professional to get guidance. If they are doing it of their own accord, more often than not, they're open to hearing what you have to say, but it's also not a guarantee, because if they then meet with a mental health professional and they're not able to establish a good working rapport, they might not like what you have to say, and then they might not be willing to go along with it. Also, sometimes clients will come into the practice with a certain view of their situation. I'm the functional one, and he's the one that doesn't play nice. And then when they come in and you're working with them, and then you try to point out other perspectives, if you're not buying into their narrative, and again, you don't have that working relationship, and they're not able to take other perspectives, that can also make their buy-in and commitment difficult.
Yes, I guess it depends on the situation. What would you say are the top 3 things that make a co-parent relationship work well?
I really like that question, because my answer would be the same if you were asking about intact couples, people that are together with or without children, and couples that are apart with or without children but still have some connection. And I believe the first most important thing to work on is always going to be communication. And there is all types of communication. There's verbal, there's nonverbal, there's in person, there's through technology. So we want to be mindful of what is it that you're communicating at any given point in time, and on the surface and what's below the surface, because there's going to be 2 layers to communication. What are the little words that you're saying and what's the meaning behind it? And when we talk about working on communication, I think the 3 ideas to keep in mind is that communication be focused. Think about what it is you want to say and say what you want to say, and try to avoid the but also this and but also that, and this is sort of related but not really on topic, and this also sort of happened but not really relevant to the main issue. Because when you start to scatter like that, you lose your communication of your main message. So we want it to be focused. And in addition to being focused, you want to have it be goal oriented. What are you looking for from your partner? What is it that you want from them in response? Is it an action you want them to take? Is it a way that you prefer that they respond to you? Be clear about what you're looking for from your partner. And in that way, you're then offering a suggested solution. This is what happened. This was how I reacted to it. This is what's troubling me. This is what I would like to see have happen. What do you think about that? And then stop talking and listen, because then you have to hear back what they have to say with an open mind. Because if you really want to have a working co-parenting relationship, it's never just about one person talking and one person listening. It's this loop that really should kind of go back and forth, where both parties feel like they can say what they're looking for, but also listen and pay attention and respond based on what they heard. So to sum it up, top three, I'd say be communication, active involvement. So you're not passive, you're trying to work on this, and openness to what they're saying, openness to what they're proposing, openness to what they're trying to communicate to you.
Yeah, I think also what you said about having that goal of what you want out of them. Then when they do it, you know that they actually listen to you. You're still mad at them for not doing it. They are now going to act differently, change this behavior or whatever you want.
Right. And I have to say that for all of the things that we've talked about, my feedback to you is general, based on the general, typical parent or person that I might come across. But I do have to sort of throw out the qualifying statement that my feedback and my guidance obviously differs based on each family's unique situation. And if there is a spouse or a child that has serious mental health issues, conditions, diagnoses, special needs, anything like that, that can't be ignored. That absolutely needs to be factored in when we come up with a plan for co-parenting, communicating, and how everybody gets along. It really needs to be tailor-made to each family's makeup.
100%. Yep. I don't know if you could share this, but your top successful story or something really interesting that happened with the client.
Sure. So obviously I can't share any identifying information, so I have to mask this. But what I think will be the most useful for your listeners is that this family that I have in mind, what stood out about them was really how the parents got along. So it was a unique case for my practice, because for the most part, the clients that I work with are high conflict and they're embroiled in that and they're not really getting along that well. But this couple, like you had said before, they started off with the intention of, we understand that as a couple, we no longer work, but we will be these children's parents forever. So we have to figure out how to work as a couple, even though we are or will be a divorced couple. And what was really neat about that is it gave the message to the children that we always strive for with separating families, that the parents are not together, but the family is still a family. You might live in two houses, you might spend time with one parent, not the other, but that doesn't change the fact that when we talk about family, it includes all family members, not just the parent that you're with. And part of how they were really able to teach that to their kids is because between them two, they really strove to respect each other, especially in front of the children, and not fight and argue or expose the kids to the conflicts that were coming up. And part of how they did that was, if the child ever asked for something and there wasn't agreement on it between the parents, both parents would say, I hear you, I know you want an answer to this, your mother and I, your father and I are in the middle of talking about it, and when we decide, we will tell you.
It's like we're still a family. Yeah.
That's right. And a lot of parents and even other people in the community and professionals and just people that try to help people will always say to me, is divorce good? Is divorce bad? Should we, shouldn't we? Should we wait for the kids to get older? And my response is always, divorce itself, like as a word, as a concept, is just the action of changing course. You are on one course and now you are divorcing from that course. It can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It really depends on what the kids are exposed to and what their life is like. So if staying together means that the children will be exposed to a daily barrage of fighting and insulting and mudslinging, then what's the gain of staying together? But if staying together is, okay, we can actually pull this off and come up with a routine where we have clearly defined roles, and maybe we don't spend as much together time, but the kids will still have one house and one unit. If you can do that, then great, do it. But I always encourage parents and other professionals that ask me, when you make this decision, really think about, what will the children's experiences be like? Don't just decide yes or no because what are people going to say, and everyone says stay together for the children. Sometimes doing things for the children means doing it apart.
Amazing. Anything else you want to share with us?
Good question. So I'd say that the highlight would be early intervention, whenever you can, wherever you can. The minute that you have a concern or you think that something is going awry in either the parent-to-parent relationship, parent-to-child relationship, respond to it right away. many people, like, they have that feeling in their gut of like, that was a little different than usual. You're not quite behaving the way you used to. Try your best not to ignore that reaction of yours, and don't blow it out of proportion, but definitely respond to it, whether it's something with your kid or something with your co-parent. Because when you do that, you're not only doing your part of prevention, you're also doing your part of saying, hey, I'm with you, I'm attuned to you, and I recognize something's a little bit off, a little bit different. What's going on? Are you okay? How do I help you? And that can be one of like the most heartwarming things for both your co-parent and your child to hear, because it really shows that you are paying attention to other people. This is not just about you, it's about others also. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's pay attention to the people around you, be as responsive as you can. And that also includes paying attention to yourself. Let's not ignore that, because there are many people that don't do that. And then a decade later, after collecting over the course of years, being ignored, not being responded to, not speaking up for themselves, suddenly it's so overwhelming that it erupts. And I don't think you're doing anyone a service by not paying attention to yourself. I'd say that most of life is about a balance between attention to yourself and attention to others, a balance between taking care of yourself and taking care of others.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and subscribe to the podcast. Leave a comment below so I can know what you think. And to book your relationship photo shoot, CJE session, or just to hear more about what we do, go to lifepicksrelationships.as.me. I'm waiting.